I think that was the screening meeting when we sat on the platform and we came up with the idea of Champions. Do you remember?
Yeah.
We sat there thinking, how do we make
what
it
to call them?
world?
What to call these wonderful people?
Yeah. We went
I
through
think I said champions, and we were like, ooh, that's not bad. Ooh.
Hello everyone, welcome to the World Childless Week. This podcast is all around the importance of World Childless Week as bringing us together as a community, and we wanted to get some champions in to talk about what it means to them, and we're going to talk about what it means to us as well, because I know it represented a huge step for me last year actually. World Childless Week, I wrote a letter to my unborn child, Aaron, and it represented a huge step for me in my grieving process. Being able to speak about it, being able to write about it, because Aaron for me was a very personal thing up until I wrote my letter to him. I don't think I'd even shared the name of Aaron with my husband, which was a bit strange. So when I wrote the letter, before it got published, I shared it with my husband to see what he thought. And I think he was quite blown away by it, how personal it was. And he said, "Are you sure you want this going out?" And I'll be honest with you, I did nearly bottle it. I did think, I'm not sure about this myself. But once I wrote it, it felt almost like not saying goodbye, but making it more real. So for me, World Childless Week is an incredibly important thing for us as a community, helping us find the language and talk about things that we don't often talk about. So what about you guys? You're both champions, so what's it mean to you?
For World Childless Week for me was more kind of less about the emotional side and actually more about the practical side in many ways, because I designed the website and sorted that all out with Steph over the course of last year, and the branding, so the logos. There's been 2 logos for World Childless Week, so a large part of my time is all to do with that side. But on the emotional side, and of course I see the statistics as well, so I sit there and I've got back-end access to the website and I can see all the data coming through, and I can see not what people are up to because it's all completely confidential, but I can see where the popular content is and all of that side and how it's grown, and it's grown and grown and grown so much in such a way that it's always a bit comes, I think, when Steph and I have a conversation. Steph Phillips is the founder, of course, and we have a conversation at some point either on Zoom or it'll be on Facebook or somewhere or another, where we'll just talk about the statistics and we both end up crying. We always end up crying. It just is what we do. It's an annual cry-a-thon. And that matters because you can see it making a difference in numbers, really, more than probably anything else. From the emotional side, it's also brought together lots of people I didn't know before, because doing what I was doing before with Walk in Our Shoes, it's kind of its own little thing, and it's a bit kind of its own, either you get it or you don't get it, or you love it or you don't really quite want to, it's just not something you want to be part of. World Childless Week has got something for everybody, so I think it has a really broad remit. There's always somewhere that you can find something that you want to do, and I think that's the most powerful thing. But also the amount of people that I've met through it. I wouldn't have met either of you because of it. It's through Steph that I've got to know you. It's through World Childless Week I've got really, I suppose, to be sort of part of Fertility Fest, because we spoke about it there. So it's grown a lot, not without troubles and problems and things, but that's kind of what happens. When you're kind of finding your way with something, the website isn't always, there's always that, with the website, something we've forgotten, something's happened, but everyone is just so very lovely about that and very supportive. So for me, it's about support, it's about friendship, and all of those exciting and amazing things that we can do, and also giving us sort of a place, a marker, I think, in the year as well, that we can claim for our own, which is very, very important.
Definitely.
Michael, over to you.
Well, Childless Week for me is quite emotional. Last year's Facebook Live, I think, would probably tell you that. But it's important for me because, one, it's a way of bringing our community together because we are so fractured, and we need this to bring us all together. And hopefully, once we once we become this homogenous group of people, we can get so much more achieved. And also, it gives me an opportunity to lead by example for other men. As I've said before, we don't listen very well, so it's no good telling a guy what to do. The best way is to lead by example, and World Childless Week allows me to do that. But of course, there's always the fact that I get to spend a lot of time with some very lovely women, you two included in that, of course. So yeah, yeah, as you can see, I'm speechless. It means a lot, and I can't get my vocabulary around it sometimes. But I'm excited for today's show because I'm going to meet some more champions that I didn't know.
Oh yeah,
I think that's
agree.
Really good. Yeah, I think it's fantastic that we've got. We're not going to do any spoilers because that's Steph. She needs to tell us what she's up to. That's really important. But yeah, it is. It's a big deal, isn't it? It's brought together sort of other things. And I think if we went on to the second question that we had, we want to sort of investigate a bit more about what does it mean to the community. Then I think it's just bringing people together. And this actually, the podcast probably wouldn't have happened, I suppose, perhaps without World Childless Week. But also, it's giving people confidence to say things that they wouldn't perhaps have said before. If you start to write it down, then you have the kind of the tools. And as we said in our previous episodes about speaking about something and writing something down, then we're also enabling people. I think World Childless Week enables people to make that first little step. They can do it anonymously, and then they can build and build and build and build. And that's always a really important thing to do. And I know that the diversity and the different themes that come out of it and the content are quite incredible. I think one of the questions we talked about asking was, what was your favourite bit of World Childless Week? And it's just such a cruel question because you really can't answer it. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible to answer that because everything is there and there's a different purpose and a different meaning to it, and they're all as moving and emotive as the other. It's impossible to say.
No, definitely. I think for me last year, like seeing all the voices come together, you realise that we are disparate in our community and we are quite fractured, but when you see the stories and the way people were able to write something very personal, because it is anonymous, you realise there are so many common themes, so many common strands around our grief, our emotions, and it's not often that you get to publicly talk about your emotions. You have to, I think we talked about this, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but we talked about this with one of our guests, and it was about the fact that you have to hide your emotions. You can't be seen to be out in public getting upset or angry or any of the other emotions, envious or jealous, but in coming together as a community, you can see it's all there in black and white, and you think, great, I feel normal now, this feels normal to me, I can show these emotions. So it was really, really important that people get involved, I think, as much as they can. As much as you feel comfortable. I think if it's just a few words, even a couple of sentences, it's all something that is always very carefully considered and always worth sharing with somebody, because there'll be somebody out there, and we know that from this podcast, that we sit and we think, oh yeah, we just chat about this and that, but actually in a lot of the smaller things that we come out with that go into the episode, someone, in the feedback we've had, people will say, oh yeah, me too. And that's really, really important.
That's enough from us for the moment. Now don't forget, you can find out more about World Childless Week at worldchildlessweek.net. Okay, let's bring on the World Childless Week founder and champions.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming along. Thank you for joining us. So at the moment, presently, we have the wonderful Stephanie Phillips, the founder of World Childless Week. Hello, Steph.
Hello.
We have Jody Day. Everyone, I think, should know Jody Day, I think. We have Yvonne Maier. Hello, Yvonne. And we have Barratt. I think we're going to be joined by others, but we're going to start with the Magnificent Seven, as Berenice has said. Right, we're going to start with you then, Steph. So,
okay.
Right, so how about we start? I mean, everyone should know who you are. How about we start with you introducing yourself and then talking about how World Childless Week came about? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so as I say, I'm Stephanie Phillips, the founder of World Childless Week, which started in 2017. And it came about basically because I felt there was a need, with 2 weeks being there out in the universe, basically around the world, in the UK and America, for fertility. But there was nothing specifically for when you hit the end of that fertility journey or journey of circumstance and realised that you would never become a parent. And I felt that we at first deserved to have a day just for us, and realised we didn't deserve a day. We deserved to have an entire week where we actually gave our voice to the world.
Fantastic. I think you're absolutely right. We were talking about this earlier, actually, in the introduction, talking about how it sort of brings people together. Because although we're very disparate, everyone's got a different story, a different take on what's happened for them. Seeing everyone's voices kind of brings us all together, because you're like, wow, I chime with that, I chime with that. And it's really, it really does bring the community together and have a focus around sharing our stories.
Because like you say, every one of us has a unique story, but there are elements within that story that overlap. And the big element that we all have is the fact that we do have a pain in our heart, a hole in our heart where our children should be. And that is the one thing that we can all relate to, if nothing else.
Definitely. No, most definitely. So what does it mean to you then to have actually done this? Because it's an incredible achievement.
It's still a bit of a nerve-wracking disbelief that it can't have actually still happened, been going on, and it's a real jumble of emotions, because I really did not expect it to take off in the first year. To know that we're coming up now to the third year is pretty amazing, to say the least. It's a bit of a shock and awe moment for me.
Hashtag stage fright.
Yeah. Somebody asked me recently and said, are you excited? I said, I'm equally excited and equally nervous. It's a very mixed bundle of the two together.
We
were saying, sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say that we were talking earlier about what World Childless Week has done so much. It's brought us all together. We were just saying that this podcast wouldn't be here because of, if it wasn't for World Childless Week. We wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for World Childless Week. And so, yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for...
No, thank you for joining me, basically, because, as I said, I started off fully expecting to do the entire week on my own. And obviously that completely changed around, thank goodness. And now we've got so many people, and not just me, not just the champions, but the people who give in the submissions, the people who stay anonymous, the people who just like a post, the people who don't even like a post because they're too scared to put themselves out there, but they read it. And I think that's the big thing, like you say, there's a never-ending circle of us, because sadly people are joining our community every day. And that's what we have to remember. But
yes.
Yeah, I feel like you say, there's a lot of positives coming out of a negative.
Okay. Yvonne, would you like to answer the questions with us? Would that be okay?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Sarah, do you want to lead again?
Sure.
You're doing it so well.
Really? Seat my pants. Hello, Yvonne. How are you doing? So, for those of you that don't know you out in the community, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Yvonne Maier. I'm from Germany, living in Munich, and I am childless, not by choice, and I've been part of this community for quite a long time. I read Jody's article in The Guardian in 2008 or something. I'd just broken up with my husband, and I thought, oh my God, next year I'll be 30. It will take me 4 years to get over this. It will take me another 3 years to find somebody else again. What am I going to do? And so that's how I found Gateway Women, and became part of the community. And now I did the online bee with Jody last year and realized there's a World Childless Week. And currently, so since last year, I'm hosting the German Facebook page, where we kind of have a very low key interaction with German speaking people. Like I translate the questions and answer questions, but most of it is on the main page.
Oh, fantastic. So do you just do the bee? Do you do blogs or anything like that at all?
At the moment, that's all I do.
Right. Okay. just checking in case you needed a plug.
I just retweet Jody and your stuff and everything.
That's such an important thing to do, though, Yvonne.
Yeah.
I think, because I know that with Steph and I doing bits and pieces in those first sort of few months of it, it's so hard to that traction and doing things on Facebook and retweeting and sharing. It's just such a powerful thing to help out with World Childless Week and do that, because that's massive. So thank you, because we do see it pop up. It's amazing. So it's not just what you do. That's an amazing thing to do. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to go back on mute now.
So I'm wondering, what does World Childless Week mean to you then, as a champion?
For me, it means connection to other people, hearing stories, but also, I don't know, a kind of publicity of this question. I posted a lot last year, and I got some very beautiful reactions from people who I know. And it was a very fine way of telling people, it's a private question, but I'm posting this because you probably know why. And that was, very important.
I think that's a real thing, actually, because it does bridge the gap, doesn't it? World Childless Week. It bridges the gap between the communities. So that's a really important point, I think, that you've put out there.
Yeah.
So what do you think it means to us as a community then? That segues nicely.
Well, I think, like Stephanie said, there are so many weeks for different groups. And it's important that we have one as well. And I'm a science journalist, so I even know that journalists love weeks and days where people celebrate or acknowledge something. And so it's even from a publicity aspect, it's quite important to not kind of spread something all year round, but kind of focus it, and then everybody can focus, and people who are not part of the everyday experience can see it. And so that's why I think that the week is so important.
I think everyone knows you, Jody. That's it. But if you'd like to do a bit of an introduction, tell us a bit about yourself.
I have to say, that sounds rather terrifying. So my name's Jody Day. I'm the founder of Gateway Women, and I'm a very proud World Childless Week champion. I'd like to echo what Yvonne said, that it's an amazing time to bring us together. I think so many of us, and looking at some of us on this call today, and just for the listeners, we can see each other. So, but you're just going to hear our voices. Is that so many of us work on our own, in our private time, perhaps away from our sort of bill-paying jobs and things like that. Not all of us, but many of us do in this community around the world. And so we're quite isolated from each other normally. And for me personally, I love the fact that World Childless Week brings us all together as a chance to sort of celebrate each other and celebrate the highs and lows of doing this work together. And I also think it has a very powerful amplifying message by bringing us all together. I think it helps lots of people find the kind of support, the type of voice, the kind of story that resonates most with them. Because someone will come to the Gateway Women website and it won't vibe with them. But it might be that, that Anne's website or Sarah's website or Berenice, that something else, the story or the way, thinking of Berenice, the visuals and the way it's designed, or just something about it might be like, oh yeah, that feels more like me. And I love the fact that this makes it possible for those voices, to be found. And I'm a great one in supporting new voices and emerging voices, because I think we rise together.
No, I think that's true, actually. I think you've been very supportive. Even sort of me, I did your Reignite weekend many moons ago. And you've been very, very supportive, and, just with me sort of doing blogs and everything. So thank you. So what do you think it means to the community? You sort of touched on it a bit there, sort of bringing all the voices together. And we've talked about bridging between the two communities as well, between those that do and those that don't. Do you think there's anything else that it brings as well, as somebody that, you know, you've got massive oversight on this sort of thing?
I think it does bring a level of kind of credibility in a way. I think sometimes getting the message across to the parents in our lives, not our own parents, but, you know, the parenting community, you know, World Childless Week, it's like, oh, that's an official week. It's like, oh, so it is actually a thing. It's not just my friend who keeps bleating on about this. You know, it's really a thing. Because as we all know, it can be, many of us believe that we're sort of the only one dealing with this issue. So yes, it gets it out there, but I just think the sheer number of voices and things like that just enables individuals to, you know, to feel, oh, I'm sort of allowed to have my story. Even if it's, and I know that from some of the stories I've heard through World Childless Week over the years, it's often a coming out week for a lot of childless people. It can often be the first time they've shared something on their personal Facebook page, or they've shared an article that one of the champions has written, or something like that. And it's tremendously supportive to individuals. It's tremendously supportive to the community. And I think it's tremendously supportive to the cause of having childlessness included in life, in the life experience of so many people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We talked about this in the intro, so I won't repeat myself, but last year was the first time I wrote for World Childless Week, and it was, and I know that some people don't like this term, but it was a coming out for me. It meant that I was able to put words around my experience for the first time. So
well, I have an anecdote to share, which is that a gay Gateway Women member who was a member for a long period of time and was very active in the community, she's sort of moved on now, which is fantastic, is that she said that coming out as childless was harder than coming out as a lesbian, that she's had more difficulty with establishing and having her childless pain and her childless identity recognised than she did having her lesbian identity, sexuality and needs recognised. And that, I thought, really helped me to feel a little bit more comfortable using that term, coming out, because, you know, to compare those two and find this harder, I think that really helps us to frame how challenging this is.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's powerful, because I have been told off for using that phrase.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Thank you, Jody. Thanks for that.
Not all the champions could join us on the day we made the mass recording, but we were so pleased when the champion I like to call the childless not by choice warrior said yes. Bibi Lynch is a journalist, a writer and a broadcaster. She hosts After the Watershed, an adult radio show for BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey, presents Bibi Lynch's Whips for, again, BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey, co-presents Good Sex Bad Sex, a podcast for metro.co.uk, and fronts her own show. Bibi does Soho on Soho Radio. And to us, Bibi is a courageous and witty woman. And I know I can speak for Sarah and Berenice when I say that we all love Bibi. Now, there was so much more to this conversation that we're going to put it together for another episode. But for now, here are Bibi's thoughts on being a World Childless Week champion.
The whole thing about the World Childless Week, which I think is an extraordinary project and a brilliant project for many reasons, which I'll go into in a minute. But it's just telling your story. It's just that power of you're not alone. And so I'm saying what I think, and in a way, why would anyone care what I think? You know, I'm just one person. It doesn't matter what I think, except what I think. It's reflecting what's happened to everyone else, and maybe what they think. And then if we all know we're thinking the same thing, or we've got there's some common ground, it just helps. It's just instant support. We don't even have to know each other. I think it's just that thing of you're not alone.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How the childless are treated in society, and the childless by choice and childless not by choice. It's fucking extraordinary, and it's accepted bigotry, and it has to stop. And that's why I think World Childless Week is such a brilliant thing. I think that, you know, I was honoured to be asked to be a champion, to be with everyone involved. I think Stephanie Phillips, the founder, is amazing. Berenice, Rod Silvers, Yvonne, Leslie, Stella, you two, incredible Jody Day. To be with your people, you lot, is just a real honour for me. I think what World Childless Week says, and Steph said a really great quote, and I'm going to say it because I don't know if you're using this anywhere else, but I think this is really brilliant. The gap that exists between parents and the childless community needs to be bridged, and our grief needs to be recognised and respected, because it's not. That's all we're asking.
Yeah. That's
all we're asking for. And to not be treated as other, and better than that, to not be treated as less. So that, so that's why I think World Childless Week is extraordinarily important. I think, I think Jody Day is an incredible woman, and I think what Jody Day says about, and Jody Day is the founder of Gateway Women, for anyone listening who doesn't know, and of course you do know, but I'm just saying that in a journalistic way, just letting everyone know. She talks about your tribe, having to have your tribe, and World Childless Week does that. I mean, ideally, World Childless Week wouldn't exist because we wouldn't need it. We wouldn't need to be standing up and saying the fucking obvious.
Yeah.
But while we do, I mean, and P.S., this is a club I don't want to be part of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like us all.
Weird, you've said weird, that. Yeah, it's a really weird situation. But I would say the one good thing that's come from being childless not by choice, and talking about it, two good things. The one good thing is, even today I was reading an email from someone who sent it to me thanking me for writing stuff, and I can't tell you what that feels like. It's incredible. It's just incredible that someone, what I say is never going to help people, but if it assists, maybe if that, or guides, or sends people, directs people to the right place, and then that's just incredible if that can happen. The second good thing is about is the people I've met who are in my situation, who are, to a woman and a man, incredible, really strong and empathetic and compassionate and kind and broad-minded and not dicks and not and just not and haven't closed down and don't think they're, I've written this because it just blew my fucking mind. There was a doctor, it was a quote in Doctor Who, right? And it was a bloke talking to the Amy Pond character, and the bloke said to her, I don't know, a lesser character, we'll give him that title. And he went to Amy Pond, "You're a mother, aren't you?" And she said, "Why?" And he said, "You have kindness in your eyes."
Oh,
no.
God.
And even
who writes this shit?
Everyone writes this shit, because that's what's perceived. That's, it's what Jody talks about, the pronatalism, worshipping at the altar of motherhood and parenthood. And there's just this level of, you're that and we're shit. And even if it's not shit, or you're that and we're different. You're not, we're less valid. And I'm hoping, and the people I've met certainly don't fit into that category.
Next, we have a woman that has both taught and inspired me greatly. Vicky Page is a woman with a disability who lives the ethos of being a champion. She faces the mountain of challenges that life has thrown at her with grace, humility, love and happiness. Now, the quality of this clip is a little bit quiet, but Vicky's doing this from her wheelchair and relying totally on technology. So how about you just turn up the volume a touch? Okay. Let's hear from this beautiful and courageous champion, Vicky Page.
Hey everybody. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the World Childless Champion and the reason why I've done it. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I am Vicky Page, and I am one of the many champions that are representing World Childless Week this year. It's my second year of doing so, and unfortunately, I haven't gotten as much media coverage as I would like, but on the good side of things, I still believe that this particular event will be stronger and better than ever. We have some wonderful champions, and the likes of Jody Day, Kate Kaufman, and also the wonderful Stephanie. the creator of such a wonderful week. So if you were wondering about me and what I'm about, I'm here. Let me share a little bit about myself. I promise you this won't be too long. I came to know Stephanie 2 years ago. I think it was around 2012. We were in a support group together for childless people. Non-mom, if you prefer. At the time, there was really no spaces for us, so the term was childless, which either one I'm comfortable with. And we got to talking a bit, and she's still working on that wonderful book. And through the years, even though we live on opposite ends of the world, I think through these support groups that she created and her desire to write this book have really made me develop some sense of not only duty, but sense of need to have a voice in the childless community. So my name is Vicky Page, and that's why I'm World Childless Champion. And thank you for your time. And join me on September 16th to kick off what will be a wonderful. Thank you.
For the listeners that aren't familiar with who you are and what you do in the childless community, could you give a bit of an introduction about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name's Barratt, and I live in Sydney, Australia, in the Blue Mountains. And I run a business called Empowering Health, and a division of that is called Childless Support. And so my URL is childlesssupport.com. And so I specialise in helping people who are childless not by choice. But off the back of that has also come another offshoot, is helping people who are still trying to conceive. So from a health perspective, because my own journey has been through health problems, psychological problems, and partners changing their mind, so all matter of different circumstances. And so I help people with all aspects of their health, as well as those grieving and dealing with coming to terms with childlessness. So I do that one-on-one mostly through face-to-face and online.
Wow, sounds like you've got one hell of a personal story there then. It sounds like you've had a lot thrown at you.
It's a long story, yes.
So what does it mean to you to be a World Childless Week champion?
Oh, it's a great honour. And for me, because when I was going through my journey, I found it hard to find any support or anything out there in the media, and I spoke to various professionals and got laughed at the suggestion that there was anything even beyond IVF, and like with failed IVF or beyond having to have a hysterectomy, and in those circumstances and not knowing where to go. And it took a while to find Gateway Women. Like, it didn't come up as a Google search from Australia, because often in Australian Google you end up getting the things within Australia or Asia, but not over that way. And so finally I found Gateway Women, which was a fantastic help, and Jody's book as well. And went through those steps to find my plan B. And so my plan B became starting up this business to help other people, where I found a hole. And whereas I need support, I couldn't find a counsellor without children. I couldn't find a psychologist who didn't have children. And I just felt like going through their processes, I just felt like it was a waste of time, because they still didn't understand what I was going through as being childless. And so that empowered me to then help others. But also this being a champion helps me and allows me gives me a platform to reach more people, to help more.
Flipping heck, one hell of a journey you've been through there, to be laughed at. Okay, less about that. Said about that probably better. So what does it mean, do you think, to the community, the World Childless Week, in your opinion?
As Jody said, it gives everybody a platform and an opportunity to come together, and it's because it's a safe community, knowing that you are with people in similar circumstances to yourself, and it gives it credibility and a voice. Like, only last week, I was at a networking meeting and had the opportunity to announce World Childless Week as an event that I was supporting, so to encourage more people. So I know within that networking group, there are a number of people who are childless by circumstance, but they won't actually, they just see it differently, in the sense that they feel as though they have to keep it to themselves and question whether or not it is something to, talk about even, and it's almost like they're not worthy of communicating how they're feeling. And so I did get a lot of people coming up to me and Facebooking me after the event about their support and thinking how big good a cause it is. And so they're now sharing and actually more informed themselves, and so more mindful of their friends, those people that may have children, but mindful of their friends who don't have children as well as a result. So it's educational for everyone, not just for people who are childless by circumstance, but opening it up for others so that it becomes more acceptable.
Massive impact, isn't it? Massive. Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you.
And then Karin.
Hi,
hello, Karin. How are you?
Hi, everyone. How am I? I'm exhausted. Just come back from Paris last night, where I did the recording for the 51% at the French television channel France 24 with Annette Young, who had a topic about Mum's Not the Word on her new show. So it's been a whirlwind roller coaster ride the last 3 days, but it's been brilliant. I don't know if you've seen it already. It's put out there on all the social media platforms and stuff, and very happy to have been the spokesperson for Gateway Women there.
Fantastic. So how can people find that if they're looking for it? Is there a URL or anything?
For the 51%, yeah, there is a URL. I've given myself a day off today, except for this webinar, and I'm going to post everything tomorrow. So I'll also make sure that it gets shared in the community on Facebook. I'll copy the link there.
Fantastic. If you bung it over to us as well, we'll share it in the notes.
Okay, and I just got a message from Stephanie saying that it's already on the World Childless Week page. So it's already on there.
So people can find it. So for those that aren't familiar with you, Karin, would you be able to tell us a bit about yourself, what it is you do?
Of course, I'm Karin Enfield. I live in Belgium. I'm from Holland, but I live in Belgium. And I am childless by circumstance. I am a cervical cancer survivor. Got diagnosed with cervical cancer 7 years ago at the age of 33. And when I was asked by my oncologist if I had a wish to become a mother, I said yes, but if it means that if I forgo treatment or put off the treatment for now and in order to have children, and I might risk losing my life because of it, then I am choosing my life over my wish to become a mum. And so I have to have a hysterectomy. I hope lots of surgeries afterwards, and coming out the other end of having had cancer, I was left with a pamphlet of life after cancer, and that was it, and no attention for the fact that I was actually a woman in her early 30s, mid 30s, without a womb. And where did I go? What could I do with my wish still to become a mum? And then my husband and I pretty soon found out that we did not have any other options, and that left us as a childless couple and me as a childless woman. So I also, like other women who have already shared, I went into a search online about where can I go, where can I find support, where do I go? And then I eventually also stumbled upon Gateway Women, where I also ordered Jody's book, put it on a shelf the moment it arrived, didn't look at it for 6 months. And then when I realized that I was actually really deep into my grief and I really needed to do something with it, is when I actually picked up the courage to pick up the book again, joined the online community, and then also went on to the Plan B mentorship program online in 2017. And also as part of my Plan B is that I'm now committing myself to helping other women deal with the whole process of the grief and the, how do you say that, the societal pressure almost that comes with the stigma, I would almost say, because I really don't like the word childless, because it almost makes me feel like I am less than others, or women who with children, or even women who are child free. So I'm really, really committed to setting up that in the Benelux here. So that's Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg area. And that has kind of become my plan B. And what Jody beautifully said earlier, next to my daytime job, my mortgage paying job, I do this work happily and with how do you say that, with gutso and with a lot of love and admiration for our community.
Fantastic. That's one hell of a story you've had there. That sounds the hardest thing. That sounds really hard.
Yeah, it has been really hard, and I can honestly now say I am on the other side of it. But yeah, it's been a hell of a 7 years.
Yeah, sounds like it. So what do you think World Childless Week means to the community?
Oh, I think I think it's everything that I wanted to say about that has already been said, so I don't want to echo the other women, but I really do feel that it does give us the acknowledgement that we so deserve, that we are a demographic that needs to be heard, it needs to be acknowledged, we need to be seen, we need to be understood, and our voices do need to be heard. And I think it does make a huge difference to actually have the platform there, and to have to actually be able to say, like, we do have a full week that is dedicated to this community, to us as women and men who are dealing with this. It's I think men are often overlooked in this in this topic, and I tell from experience from my own husband. He is like, no, I don't need to talk to anybody about this. I'm dealing with this myself. So he doesn't feel the need to actively join the community, but however, he does feed off it through me. I think it's just amazing to actually have that platform and have that week acknowledging us.
Perfect. That's so well said. Thank you, Karin. That was amazing.
Hello, Yvonne. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
I was wondering if you could just sort of introduce yourself for people that aren't familiar with yourself and your work and what you do in our community.
So I'm Yvonne John. I'm author of Dreaming of a Life Unlived. I'm a member of the Gateway community and a facilitator for the Gateway Reignite weekend workshops.
So I was wondering, what does being a World Childless Week champion mean to you?
So for me, it's the opportunity to get our stories out. I think World Childless Week is a great platform for the different stories to be heard. One of the things I found on my journey was that although we're all here and we're all grieving for the same reason, there are many reasons why we got here, but it's so silenced and people don't appreciate the difficulties that we are experiencing or have experienced on our journeys. And I think World Childless Week just gives us that opportunity to get our stories out and have our voices heard.
And what do you think it means for the community as a whole? You sort of touched on it there, getting voices out, and I think that's a popular theme, isn't it? Because we are a sizable chunk of the community.
Yes.
We're largely invisible.
Absolutely. And I think, especially when you look at the fact that, especially, I can say in Black families, in Asian families, that having children is such an important thing. And I know for women of colour, we feel like we're being isolated or left out and we don't know where we fit in anymore. And I think, and I know that's kind of a common thing for women anyway, or no matter what your race or colour is. But what I'm finding is that there's these two distinct groups. You've got a child or you don't. And we don't meet anywhere in the middle. And there's no common understanding about actually what we're going through. I've had conversation with mothers and I can see there's commonalities in the experience of fertility and people's fertility journeys. But the difference is we've ended up with not having children. And it kind of, the story kind of ends with, I had a child, great. But it doesn't continue with, well, what happens when you don't have a child? And I think with the community, it's about joining us back together and making it more whole, because this should be a holistic approach. It shouldn't be about a them and an us, or I won and you didn't. It should be about, actually, we all have common themes in this, and understanding each other and knowing there's value in both our stories and both our journeys. And ours didn't end in the miracle baby story, but it still ended in a miracle story, because we are still surviving, we are still thriving, and we matter.
Oh, I love that. So you touched on it there, sort of being a woman of colour. Do you find that there is less representation of childless women of colour?
Yes, I do. I mean, I remember when I was at the beginning of my journey, and that started in 2016, straight 17, at the end of 2016. And I remember feeling like I couldn't talk about it. I mean, I had a lot of shame around my own story. And what I didn't realise was race actually was part of that, because of the things that I had growing up as a child. So, and I talk about this a lot. So as a black child, I heard a lot of, don't bring shame on the family, what will the neighbours think, don't tell your story outside of the house. And it's something, when I talk to other women of colour, that's very common. This is the messages we heard when we were growing up. So then I was in a place where, what do I do with this grief? Because I didn't know how to process it. And I remember Jody having a conversation. She did a conversation with a lady in America called Karin Green, I think her name was. And my first reaction was, oh my God, she's a black woman. And I really, and it was the first time I heard a black woman talking about childlessness. And I realized that actually, and the more I talk about it, women are coming up to me and saying, oh my God, thank you for talking, because I'm noticing how silenced we are as a race because of the messages we had growing up. So it's so important for black women, Asian women to be out there, and even men. Because if black women are silenced, can you imagine how much black men are silenced? There's such a taboo around being vulnerable and showing what they consider a weakness, which I think is a strength, to be able to be that vulnerable and own our stories. And I really want to promote the fact that actually there is strength in it, and we do need to hear it from all forms of life.
Is there an added dimension then, sort of community, family, there's more pressure on you as an ethnic minority rather than white?
I think it comes down to, I mean, there is a different dynamic. Mm-hmm. I've never kind of considered it as an added pressure, but when I think about my journey as a black woman anyway, and I remember my dad telling me I'm going to have to work twice as hard as my white friends. I'm going to have, because I'm black and because I'm a woman. And that message is still there. I hear it still in different forums for minority groups. And so as I said, I think anyway, we are working twice as hard because we're different. And there are a lot of cultural aspects that play out, and it's so unconscious that we're not aware of it. And I think because we're not having the conversations around it, and we're in a way not allowed to have the conversations around it, we don't actually understand culturally what is going on for people. So when we add something like childlessness on to the mix, and grief, and the difficulties around even talking about that, if I couldn't talk to white people about just being who I am in the workplace, for example, how am I then going to talk to you about this difficulty of my grieving, because I can't talk anyway? So yes, there is another layer of pressure on there, because as I said, if I couldn't talk anyway, if people are not understanding me anyway as a black woman, why are they going to start understanding the grief that I'm going through? Because I've been silenced, and I was so silenced before that, how am I going to break through that now?
And then we're joined by Mr. Robin Hadley. Better late than never.
Sorry about that.
No, don't apologise, I was joking. I don't know if you saw the message. So what we're doing is we're asking people to introduce themselves, what World Childless Week means to them individually, and then what it means to the community. Is that okay?
Sure.
So, hello, Robin. So for those that don't know you, Robin, what is it you do within the childless community?
I try to put forward my experience and then expand it into what men may or may not experience and why they behave like they do. So I was really broody in my 30s. I'm nearly knocking on to 60 now, but I didn't really appreciate that at the time. I didn't become a dad, and I really wanted to become a dad. And that's an ongoing fluid grief, really. And like the tide, sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out, and sometimes I jump in, and sometimes it just comes round the back and encircles me, I guess. And I trained as a counsellor, and then decided to do a master's in that, and it had to be something you'd experienced. And so I did male broodiness, and that's when I found out there was really not a lot about male broodiness at all, the impact of not being a father.
Okay, so what's it mean to you to be a World Childless Week champion?
It's an honour, and it's an opportunity to put not the case for men, but open up about men and give that format, an arena for men to share. And I wouldn't expect there to be a flood of men coming in, but they'll be listening, they'll be looking, they'll be processing, and it will have an effect. And they'll agree with some stuff and they won't agree with others. But that negotiation of themselves and how they want to be will start. And one of the things, a few things actually, is some of the guys I know who became dads later on in their 40s have said to me, you know what, I didn't realise what was missing in my life until I had kids, but I knew something wasn't right. But I never expressed it at the time. So there's this thing about men not expressing themselves and sort of being detached from their emotional interior or their emotional landscape. I'm trying to get something in there and I can't grasp it, but I'm sort of getting there. So I think being a world champion, childless champion, whatever it is I am, of the many things I am not, means a lot to me, from that connectivity and like putting a stone in a pond, the ripples go and change things, and a lot of that is below the surface.
Thanks, Robin. I think you've nailed it there. Really, that's a good ending, isn't it, Michael? I think that summarises it really nicely.
It does indeed.
It does. So one of the things that we're mindful of, though, it's Steph's World Childless Week. So we want to open up the mic to you now, Steph.
I think one of the big things is that we still need to say World Childless Week. It's great that I speak out. It's great that the champions speak out and that there are more bloggers coming on board. But the problem is World Childless Week is really also about helping the people who don't speak out, so they can have their voice anonymously within the week, or if they find that courage, put their name to it. But World Childless Week is about the community, and the community is not just about those who find that common, as I say. It needs to be the people who don't have the courage. It needs to be a case of giving them the opportunity to put pen to paper, to stamp away with the fingers at a keyboard and actually get their aggression out, or to release some of the emotions of the acceptance they're finding, and allow them to have the freedom to speak and use their voice in a way that possibly they've never done before. That they've got that freedom there of knowing they've got confidentiality. They're going to speak to me and me alone. The information is not going to be held. The details don't have to be held. All I need are their words on a piece of paper, and their words are what makes World Childless Week. If people don't submit, we will have empty pages, or we will have 1 or 2 submissions a day. And if that's all we have, then I still accept that as being a really good powerful World Childless Week, because if people don't want to send in a submission, then that is their choice. And the whole big thing about World Childless Week is it is people's choice to do what makes them happy and what they're comfortable with at that time on that day. So yes, we need to sort of hopefully see submissions from people, but if it's not right for you at this moment in time, don't force yourself. But please, if you've got anything you want to say, and whilst again on the website we say things like, oh, this is a perfect word count, this is a perfect subject. If you've got something that is 50 words long or if it's 2,000 words long. If you think it's important and you want to share it, get in touch, because I don't make judgments on the length. I don't make judgments on the grammar, on anything else. It really is about you and what matters to you as a childless man or woman to come on board and actually say during the week.
Yeah, and it's not just the written word, is it? Like last year, there were so many submissions that were across the board of all sorts of media. Song, it was. It's
expressing you. It's the freedom of expression in any way, shape, or form. So whether that's through writing, whether it's through poetry, through dance, through singing, through any sort of form of creativity. And I also say with childlessness in the arts, if you spend 5 minutes with a biro on a jotter pad, scribbling away, making a doodle that's expressing the anger you've just heard from a comment that was insensitive, then that's a creative release. Or if you spend months putting oil on a canvas, that is your journey to acceptance. Neither of those is above the other. They're both an expression of your childlessness, and they both count. You know, we don't need professional writers, professional artists. We just need to show who we are, and what we are is just a normal human being. The same as a parent, the same as somebody who's child-free. We're all the same. Unfortunately, we have these different labels that we sometimes self-impose because of the way we've been brought up, because of society, and they can feel negative to be childless. But as myself, and I know Jody and a few others say, you know, I'm childless, but it's just one part of me. One very small part of me that makes up my makeup, but I'm so much more. And it's letting people say, I'm childless and I own it. I will explain, I will express what it means to me. It does have power to control, but in the end, I hope everybody has the power to control it themselves.
Fucking hell, Steph, you nailed that.
What do you like?
You have been listening to the Full Stop podcast with the World Childless Week Champions and founder Stephanie Phillips. You can find out more about World Childless Week by going to the website worldchildlessweek.net. You can also find out more about the Full Stop podcast by going to our website, thefullstoppod.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can find all of our social media links on our website. Thank you for listening.